Well, let's talk briefly about EC2 key pairs because it is essential that you know how they work. And for that, we must talk about cryptography. Cryptography, then, is the technique of transforming data so that only the intended recipients can process it. Here is an example. Suppose person 1 wants to send his bank account number to person 2. Instead of sending the number in plain text, he can encrypt it. That is, transform it before sending it over the wire. This ensures that anyone in the environment who can see the ciphertext will not make sense of it because they would not have the necessary key to decrypt it. Having understood this point, let us now talk about public key cryptography. It uses two mathematically related keys to encrypt and decrypt data. One is called the public key and the other is called the private key, and together they form a key pair. This type of cryptography is also known as asymmetric cryptography because it uses two keys, one for encryption and one for decryption. Here is an example. Suppose we have data to encrypt. We start with a public key. When the public key is applied to the data is transformed. In other words, it is encrypted. To return the data to its original form, we need the other key, the private key. When the private key is applied to the encrypted data, the data is restored to its original form. So, with this information in mind, let's now talk about EC2 key pairs. When launching an EC2 instance, you can specify a key pair's name. Note that it is not mandatory to do so. If you already know the instance's login credentials, as in the case of a custom ONI you have created, you can skip the key pair. But if you use the predefined AMIS provided by AWS, you will need a key pair to obtain the instance's password. Then, at boot time, the contents of the public key are placed in the instance, and when you try to access the instance, you must specify a private key. An important thing to keep in mind is that key pairs are regional resources. Therefore, a key pair that you create in one AWS region will not exist in another region. Also, anyone who has access to your private keys can connect to your instances, so it is important to keep your key pairs in a safe place, and there is no way to recover a lost private key. That is, Amazon EC2 does not keep a copy of your private key, so if you lose it, you cannot recover it directly. However, there are some options to recover access to your EC2 instance, which is different, but that's another thing. Now, for Windows instances, the key pair can be used to decrypt the password, and for Linux instances, the key pair can be used to log in directly using the SSH command. So, let's go to the AWS console and look at this in more detail. Well, once you are in the EC2 console, you can create key pairs from two places. One way to do it is when you're launching an EC2 instance. So when you're launching an EC2 instance, you have all this configuration that you can apply. And down here is the key pair section. From here, you can create a new key pair as we saw earlier. You need to provide a key pair name, then select the key pair type and the private key download format. If you are connecting from a Linux or Mac OS machine, you will need it in PEM format. And if you are connecting from a Windows machine, you will need it in PPK format. So, there are 3 items to configure, and then click Create Key Pair. Doing so will download the key pair to your local machine. Also, you can create a key pair from the Key Pairs section of a left navigation pane. Once inside, click on Create Key Pair, and you will see the same options. Also, you can import a key pair that you have created on your local machine. So, if you created an offline key pair on your local machine and you want to import it to AWS, you click the Actions button and then Import Key Pair. You provide a key pair name, browse to the key pair file, and then import key pair. Now, as I mentioned before, key pairs are regional resources. For example, here, I have a key pair in the Northern Virginia region of the US. If I switch regions, let's say to Paris, You will notice that the same key pairs do not exist in the other region. Now, I'm going to switch back to the Northern Virginia region. And we see again the key pairs in this region. So, I hope we are clear on this issue with respect to the key pairs.